time for one more story because that was a short one. And this is another short one. This is the story of Madhu. It goes like this. It's from the same book, Collected Short Stories, Ruskin Bond. It goes like this. I met little Madhu several years ago when I lived alone in an obscure town near the Himalayan foothills. I was in my late 20s then, and my outlook on life was still quite romantic. The cynicism that was to come with the 30s had not yet set in. I preferred the solitude of the small district town to the kind of social life I might have found in the cities. And in my books, my writing, and the surrounding hills, there was enough for my pleasure and occupation. On summer mornings, I would often sit beneath an old mango tree, with a notebook or a sketch pad on my knees. The house which I had rented for a very nominal sum stood on the outskirts of the town, and a large tank and a few poor houses could be seen from the garden wall. A narrow public pathway passed under the low wall. One morning, while I sat beneath the mango tree, I saw a young girl of about 9 wearing torn clothes, darting about on the pathway and along the high banks of the tank. Sometimes she stopped to look at me, and when I showed that I noticed her, she felt encouraged and gave me a shy, fleeting smile. The next day I discovered her leaning over the garden wall, following my actions as I paced up and down the grass. In a few days, an acquaintance had been formed. I began to take the girl's presence for granted, and even to look for her, and she, in turn, would linger about on the pathway until she saw me come out of the house. One day, as she passed the gate, I called her to me. "What is your name?" I asked, "and where do you live?" "Madhu," she said, brushing back her long, untidy black hair and smiling at me from large black eyes. She pointed across the road. "I live with my grandmother," she said. "Is she very old?" I asked. Madhu nodded confidingly and whispered, 100 years. "We will never be that old," I said. She was very slight and frail, like a flower growing on a rock, vulnerable to wind and rain. I discovered later that the old lady was not a grandmother, but a childless woman who had found the baby girl on the banks of the tank. Madhu's real parentage was unknown, but the wizened old woman had, out of compassion, brought up the child as her own. My gate once entered, Madhu included the garden in her circle of activities. She was there every morning, chasing butterflies, stalking squirrels, and Meena, her voice humming with laughter, brimming with laughter, her slight figure flitting about between the trees. Sometimes, but not often, I gave her a toy or a new dress, and one day she put aside her shyness and brought me a present of a nosegay made up of marigolds and wild blue cotton flowers. "For you," she said, and put the flowers in my lap. "They are very beautiful," I said, picking out the brightest marigold and putting it in her hair. "But they are not as beautiful as you." More than a year passed. before I began to take more than a mildly patronizing interest in Madhu. It occurred to me that after some time, it occurred to me after some time that she should be taught to read and write, and I asked a local teacher to give her lessons in the garden for an hour every day. She clapped her hands with pleasure at the prospect of what was to be for her a fascinating new game. In a few weeks, Madhu was surprising us with her capacity for absorbing knowledge. She always came to me to repeat the lessons of the day and pestered me with questions on a variety of subjects. How big was the world? And were the stars really like the world? Or were they the sons and daughters of the sun and the moon? My interest in Madhu deepened, and my life, so empty till then, became imbued with a new purpose. As she sat on the grass beside me, reading aloud or listening to me with a look of complete trust and belief, all the love that had been lying dormant in me during my years of self exile surfaced in a sudden surge of tenderness. 3 years glided away imperceptibly, and at the age of 13, Madhu was on the verge of blossoming into a woman. I began to feel a certain responsibility towards her. It was dangerous, I knew, to allow a child so pretty to live almost alone and unprotected, and to run unrestrained about the grounds. And in a censorious society, she would be made to suffer if she spent too much time in my company. She could see no need for any separation, but I decided to send her to a mission school in the next district where I could visit her from time to time. But why? Said Madhu. I can learn more from you and from the teacher who comes. I am so happy here. You will meet other girls and make many friends, I told her. I will come to see you, and when you come home, we will be even happier. It is good that you should go, I told her. It was the middle of June, a hot and oppressive month in the Shivalik. Shivalik is the range of mountains there. It was middle of June, a hot and oppressive month in the Shivaliks. Madhu had expressed her readiness to go to school, and when one evening I did not see her as usual in the garden, I thought nothing of it. But the next day I was informed that she had fever and could not leave the house. Illness was something Madhu had not known before, and for this reason I felt afraid. I hurried down the path which led to the old woman's cottage. It seemed strange that I had never once entered it during my long friendship with Madhu. It was a humble mud hut, the ceiling just high enough to enable me to stand upright. The room dark but clean. Madhu was lying on a string cot, exhausted by fever, her eyes closed, her long hair unkempt, one small hand hanging over the side. It struck me then how little during all this time I had thought of her physical comforts. There was no chair. I knelt down and took her hand in mine. I knew from the fierce heat of her body that she was seriously ill. She recognized my touch, and a smile passed her across her face before she opened her eyes. She held on to my hand, then laid it across her cheek. I looked around the little room in which she had grown up. It had scarcely an article of furniture apart from two string cots, on one of which the old woman sat and watched us, her white, worried head nodding like a puppet's. In a corner lay Madhu's little treasures. I recognized among them the presents which, during the past 4 years, I had given her. She had kept everything. On her dark arm, she still wore a small piece of ribbon which I had playfully tied there about a year ago. She had given her heart even before she was conscious of possessing one to a stranger unworthy of the gift. As the evening drew on, a gust of wind blew open the door of the dark room, and a gleam of sunshine streamed in, lighting up a portion of the wall. It was the time when every evening she would join me under the mango tree. She had been quiet for almost an hour, and now a slight pressure of her hand drew my eyes back to her face. "What will we do now?" she said. "When will you send me to school?" "Not for a long time. First, you will have to get well and strong. That's all that matters." She didn't seem to hear me. I think she knew she was dying, but she did not resent it happening. "Who will read to you under the tree?" she went on. "Who will look after you?" she asked, with the solicitude of a grown woman. "You will, Madhu. You are grown up now. There will be no one else to look after me." The old woman was standing at my shoulder, 100 years, and little Madhu was slipping away. The woman took Madhu's hand from mine and laid it gently down. I sat down by the cot a little longer, and then I rose to go, all the loneliness in the world pressing upon my heart. Oh, that's a very short and very sad tale. Over. That's it.